Instead of always looking forward, much of what gives life its meaning and value can be found in our past. And maybe people from the past knew things, truths that we have forgotten, and that in order to grow upward, we must look backward. We shall not grow wiser before we learn that much that we have done was very foolish. Hayek's book, The Road to Serfdom, written in 1944, is a perfect example of a terrible reminder. Vienna has been called the city of dreams, but it has also been called the proving grounds of world destruction. One of the most redeeming things about Vienna, however, is that it also contributed to the world the idea of Austrian economics. The Austrian economists put an individual's desires and needs at the center of economics, and that price would be the best guidepost for the economic man. That something was worth what someone was willing to pay for it. And if you began to fix prices, you also had to begin fixing man's desires and his needs. And that leads down the road to serfdom. It all started with Karl Menger, and his ideas got passed down through Ludwig von Mises to Friedrich Hayek. Von Mises said that the mercantilists had placed goods in the center of economics, which in their eyes was a theory of objective wealth. It was the great achievement of the classics in this respect that besides the goods they set up, economic man, that is, the calculating businessman, they thus prepared the way for modern economics, which puts man and his subjective valuations into the center of the system. The attitude of a liberal towards society is like that of a gardener who tends a plant and, in order to create the conditions most favorable to its growth, must know as much as possible about its structure and the way it functions. Precisely what the price system does under competition is it enables entrepreneurs, by watching the movement of comparatively few prices, as an engineer watches the hands of a few dials, to adjust their activities to those of their fellows. The important point here is that the price system will fulfill this function only if competition prevails. That is, if the individual producer has to adapt himself to price changes and cannot control them. The question is whether for this purpose it is better that the holder of coercive power should confine himself in general to creating the conditions under which the knowledge and initiative of individuals are given the best scope so that they can plan most successfully, or whether a rational utilization of our resources requires central direction and organization of all of our activities according to some consciously constructed blueprint. The effect of people's agreeing that there must be central planning without agreeing on the ends will be rather as if a group of people were to commit themselves to take a journey together without agreeing where they want to go, with the result that they may all have to make a journey which most of them do not want at all. Is there a greater tragedy imaginable than that in our endeavor consciously to shape our future in accordance with high ideals, we should in fact unwittingly produce the very opposite of what we have been striving for? It might even be said that the very success of liberalism became the cause of its decline. Because of the success already achieved, man became increasingly unwilling to tolerate the evils still with him, which now appeared both unbearable and unnecessary. Lord Acton said that the finest opportunity ever given to the world was thrown away because the passion for equality made vain the hope for freedom. The dispute between the modern planners and their opponents is, therefore, not a dispute on whether we ought to choose intelligently between the various possible organizations of a society. It is not a dispute on whether we ought to employ foresight and systematic thinking in planning our common affairs. It is a dispute about what is the best way of doing so. Or, to express it differently, planning and competition can be combined only by planning for competition, but not by planning against competition. The difference between the two kinds of rules is the same as that between laying down a rule of the road, as in the highway code, and ordering people where to go, or, better still, between providing signposts and commanding people on which road to take. We have already seen that the close interdependence of all economic phenomena makes it difficult to stop planning just where we wish. We have progressively abandoned that freedom in economic affairs without which personal and political freedom has never existed in the past. Although we had been warned by some of the greatest political thinkers of the 19th century, by Tocqueville and Lord Acton, that socialism means slavery, we have steadily moved in the direction of socialism. And now that we have seen a new form of slavery arise before our eyes, we have so completely forgotten the warning that it scarcely occurs to us that the two things might be connected.
The younger generation of today has grown up in a world in which, in school and in press, the spirit of commercial enterprise has been represented as disreputable, and the making of profit as immoral, where to employ 100 people is represented as exploitation, but to command the same number is honorable.
What our generation has forgotten is that the system of private property is the most important guarantee of freedom, not only for those who own property, but scarcely less for those who do not. It is only because the control of the means of production is divided among many people acting independently that nobody has complete power over us.
Yet the road may be long. It is one on which it becomes more difficult to turn back as one advances. If in the long run we are the makers of our own fate, in the short run we are the captives of the ideas we have created. Only if we recognize the danger in time can we hope to avert it.
It is pathetic, yet at the same time encouraging to find as prominent an old communist as Max Heisman rediscovering this truth. He said, quote, "It seems obvious to me now, though I have been slow, I must say, in coming to the conclusion, that the institution of private property is one of the main things that has given man the limited amount of free and equalness that Marx hoped to render infinite by abolishing this institution." Strangely enough, it was Marx who was the first to see this. He is the one who informed us, looking backwards, that the evolution of private capitalism with its free market had been a precondition for the evolution of all of our democratic freedoms. It never occurred to him, looking forward, that if this was so, these other freedoms might disappear with the abolition of the free market.